Hello and welcome everybody to our first podcast series. First of many podcasts within this series, talking about our past grant recipients from the Midwest BDC coalition. During this podcast series, we'll be featuring some of our past empowerment grant recipients to learn more about their projects. If you're new here, my name is Eddie Davis II, and I'm Midwest BDC's Director of Grants and Development. Our mission here is to decarbonize the Midwest building sector by 2050, and our focus states are Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, and Ohio. First off, let me tell you guys a little bit about our granting program. To align the coalition's work with the Justice 40 and the Climate Funders Justice Pledge, Midwest BDC has committed 40% of its annual budget to re-granting work, either through participation stipends for our coalition members or through our empowerment grants. We know that the environmental injustices have not impacted all communities the same: Black, Brown, Indigenous, and people of color, members of the frontline communities, historically marginalized groups, and environmental justice communities are strongly encouraged to apply. Applications are actually now open. They opened up on August 1st and they will run through August 30th. So check out the funding program page on our website to learn more about those applications. Joining me today is Melody Arteaga, Environmental Justice Coordinator with Communities Organizing Latin Power and Action, or for short, COPAL. Melody was born and raised in Southern California in the Inland Empire region, surrounded by warehouses and polluting projects that impacted her family's health. In pursuit of education and new opportunities, she moved to Minnesota to attend college. And through her experiences as a youth worker, mentor, and facilitator, Melody has been seen firsthand the power of community in changing systems and creating equitable changes. She firmly believes that we must organize to demand knowledge about the underlying systems affecting day to day life. As the Environmental Justice Coordinator at COPAL, Melody works alongside other environmental organizers to make change in Minnesota. Welcome, Melody.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and to be able to chat a little bit more about the work and what we're doing at COPAL and here in Minnesota.
We're so great to have you. So tell us about COPAL. I'm not familiar in this. I'm still kind of new to this realm of environmental justice, but I've been in fundraising for well over a decade, and fundraise for a different variety of different causes. I'm sorry, but COPAL is something new for me. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who hasn't heard of COPAL before. So tell us a little bit about the organization and the work, exactly what you do.
Yes, of course. So COPAL stands for, as you said earlier, Communities Organizing Latina Power and Action. We are a Minnesota-based grassroots nonprofit organization. We're member-based and established back in 2018 to improve the quality of life of Latina families. And over like the past 6 years, COPAL has worked with various other organizations and our members to continue growing that mission and continuing to do the work. And part of that work is our environmental justice focus and some of the things that we'll be talking about today.
Okay, good, good. Um, so with the empowerment grant, I believe last year's awardees received anywhere in the range of between $10,000 and $50,000 to support their work. This year, we're doing around about the same thing, about $10,000 to $30,000. With the funding you received last year, how did that help your organization either scale its vision, increase its vision, or what? Add programs? What exactly did it do?
Yes, within our environmental justice work, we have four main like focus areas that we work on, and so those include, for example, like where's climate migration, and what does that mean for folks coming from other countries to the U.S. due to climate disasters, and even internally within the U.S. We also do work with like cumulative impacts pollutions and what that means in our different communities, access to green jobs and also a just energy transition. And so, really, with this grant, we've been able to connect some of those different those different focus areas to continue doing the work. And especially when we're talking about a just energy transition, it's really like, what does that mean, and what work can we make sure that the transition away from carbon and fossil fuels is equitable for all communities. And
Mhm.
oftentimes we see that people of color, communities of color, are left behind in this transition, either because, just of information that's out there, especially when we're talking about the Latina community,
Mhm.
resources in Spanish. Are folks able to get that information? Do they understand why maybe, for example, having like a gas stove in your house is
Yeah.
why it's dangerous? And so really within doing that work and with the empowerment grant, it's been just like, how can we create resources, education, continue to have these conversations with community members to create that transition. And so even looking at like federal programs like the Inflation Reduction Act,
Mhm.
right? Like that's big. That's a lot of funding that's coming from
Mhm.
the state. But how do we make sure that our communities know about the IRA? How do we make sure that they even know like the IRA is,
Yeah.
let alone how to access those resources?
Yeah.
And through this grant, that has been some of that work of like having those conversations, being able to create, for example, like communications materials. Like we ran an ad in Spanish that was then showing on Telemundo and Univision, which are like primarily Latina like
Mhm.
news channels. And so
Yeah.
families are able to really start learning about what is the Inflation Reduction Act, in the hopes of when it hits in Minnesota, we're able to be like, hey, the IRA is here. Here's how you can apply, and take advantage of these resources. And so really that has been a big focus of our work, and also some of the support that we've been doing with this grant.
Mm. Yeah, they so I know that in our work we've done a lot of uh work recently with the community change grants through the EPA, and we've focused on impoverished or socio economically challenged communities, and sometimes those fall within our Black and Brown communities. And we really found that during the grant process, we really had to educate folks who were interested in doing the grant on, you qualify for this. This money basically is set aside for you. And when we went back and talked to folks at the EPA, they were like, just keep submitting we're trying to get this to as many Black and Brown communities as possible. So the efforts are there. But again, on our it's incumbent upon our work with your organization and also with my organization that we play the role of technical assistant. We kind of break it down for folks uh, when we receive the information at a high level, break it down so that folks on the ground can really get the nuts and bolts and things, and understand how they can play a role, because they always feel marginalized or left out of the fray when things are happening. But there's opportunity there. We just have to, take up the mantle and do those things and introduce that information to them.
Mhm.
Yep.
Exactly. And it's just like, how do we work towards making sure that it is truly accessible, and that folks know that it's there,
Yeah.
and give the opportunity for folks to ask the questions that they need to ask to understand further, and to be able to also have access to these resources.
Yes. So what would you say? Give us some wins. Where would you guys say? I'm sure there were some things you guys celebrated. Maybe um, uh, it might have been, some a new cluster of people coming into the fray. You kind of had some wins where, you put that ad out on Telemundo, and you saw an influx of people, and you asked them, "Where'd you hear about us?" And they're like, "I was watching TV one day and I saw you guys on TV." Like, so give us a few wins.
Yes, I two come to mind immediately, and one of them actually has to do with one of the strategies that we have, which is like interactive and fun outdoor events and activities. And through these outdoor events, there's multiple goals, and one of the goals is like removing some of the barriers that BIPOC folks face when even doing something as like going outdoor recreation, things like getting rid of like transportation costs, translation, making sure translation is available, making sure that folks have access to equipment, and that they don't need to pay like registration fees or parking fees. And so we have like monthly outdoor events where we invite community members to join us at state parks, at different like outdoor recreation. We've done like a tennis event. We did like the maple syruping workshop that they have at Fort Snelling, and we've done some in southern Minnesota. But part of that is like, yes, breaking down the barriers for folks to come through to these outdoor events and to be able to enjoy like the nature that Minnesota has to offer.
Hmm.
But then when folks are there, it's also like, hey, have you guys heard about these resources? Do you guys know what electrification is? Do you know what like
Yeah,
fossil
yeah.
fuels are?
Hmm.
And really having that conversation, and the folks that are coming out to these events are looking for like family activities, but also
Right,
genuinely like enjoy being outside and enjoying the outdoors. And it's like, if this is something that you love and you want to work towards preserving, what steps can we take out in our homes, for
right,
example, to make sure that this is available for future generations and for your kids
right.
that are coming through with you? And so it's really a strategic way of like tying in like, let's do this fun event, and then getting folks to come through, and then for us to be like, also, did you know like
Yeah.
XYZ? And so then folks get really interested and get really into it, and then when they're there, they're like, wow, I didn't know that. Can I
Hmm.
have more information? Like,
Hmm.
what can we do to continue with this work, to continue staying involved? And then from there, we're able to be like, yeah, join our committee, be involved with COPAL, like
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this. And so that's like definitely a win. When we started the outdoor events, we were getting like probably like five. So there was like one event or two that like no one came through, and we're like, oh no. But now we're seeing like
Hmm.
25, 30, 40 people coming to these events, and it's just really growing. And I think that has been a really big success over the past year, and just like
Yeah,
really exciting to see like folks come through, but also engage with the other work that we're doing.
yeah.
um, and with that also, when you were mentioning like, seeing these ads on TV and on social media and just like the different workshops that we've been doing, we have navigators at COPAL. And so our navigators are folks that like community members can call in, and if they have a question, they can ask navigators, and the navigators are there to navigate and
Hmm.
help them answer their question. And part of that has been community members actually reaching out to the navigators and asking questions. Like, we had a community member that was like, hey, I'm a homeowner. I heard about some of the work that y'all are doing. I heard about the IRA. She's like, I want to replace my windows. I want to replace my gas stove. The conditioning in my house is like, the ventilation in my house and the conditioning and heating is like not energy efficient. Like, what can I do to resolve that? And what can you guys do to support me on next steps? And so like that has been a win as well. Like, folks just like really seeing some of these materials and
Hmm.
wanting to follow up and wanting to be part of that change, and knowing and wanting next steps on what to do.
Yeah, that's good. And that happens with when you're introducing this type of thing. You're building your trust. In the beginning, and people, um, we know within because we're both members of those communities. It's oh no, what are they trying to roll out now? How is this going to affect me? So it is a trust thing. But once you start, they seeing it more frequently. They start seeing the advertisements in different places that they frequent, and then also too word of mouth. Once they hear from others that, hey guys, this is really for us, this is what we're trying to do, and they're really trying to support, then they will, show up. And as you can see, and the trust and the interest is building over time because you guys are showing up for them every day. So that's a good thing.
Yes. And I think you hit on something like really valuable as well. It's just like the trust. Like,
Hmm.
if it's coming from, folks that you already know or have a relationship with, like an organization, you're doing events with them, you're more likely to trust them versus like if the Minnesota Department of Commerce puts out like an ad
Yeah,
of like, hey, there's these rebates, they're gonna be like, what's in it for me? Like, what do they
yeah.
want from me?
What does
And
this
so,
really mean? Rebate? How long does it take to get? And all that kind of stuff. Those questions
exactly.
are come up. Yep.
Exactly. And so it's like also like building that trust, and making sure that the information is out there in a way that folks are going to be excited about it, can learn about it, and like you said, really have that trust to fully understand and take advantage of those
Yeah.
resources.
So would you also say too, with that being a win, also the trust thing being a challenge too? Did you see that as like one of your challenges this past year?
Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily a challenge, but it does take time to develop that trust, and for folks to recognize, like, oh, I've heard of Copal, or I've done things with Copal. And so it is just kind of like a working relationship. But I think what has been a challenge is, even with some of the resources available, just even access to or understanding, like, where do you start? Like, okay, we're doing this education about the IRA and the resources available to decarbonize like your home. And then when folks like are calling, for example, our navigators, it's like, okay, what is the next step? And it's really confusing, right? Because it depends on like what city do you live in, who is your utility provider, what county are you in, what is like your income, how many people are in your home. Then once you get past all of that, there's also like the barrier of like language. How do you make sure that like folks doing an energy audit are also going to be able to speak Spanish and be able to explain like what they're finding in their home to you? And so really just like the steps of like what is next has been a challenge. And even for us, like when we get these calls from community members that are like, hey, I want to do this, what do I do next? Really taking time to work with those community members and figuring out like, yeah, what do they do next? Like, where do you live? What do you
Yeah.
qualify for? Also, the barrier of cost sometimes,
Yeah.
like I mentioned, an energy audit, like those cost money depending on where you live, and it can
Mhm.
be kind of a lot for some families. And so that has definitely been a challenge of like, how do we navigate all the resources available
Mhm.
and make sure that like folks that want it can use it.
Correct. Correct. So, what would you say that the work that you guys do, how does that connect back to Midwest BDC's mission? And I know that we kind of align in some of our, Justice 40 goals and that sort of thing in decarbonization. So, how would you say that the work you guys currently doing and ongoing work really matches up with what we do?
Yes, I think part of Midwest BDC's mission, right, of like creating equitable like strategies to achieve zero emissions, I think very closely aligns with some of that work that we're doing. Again, it's like the education, the word of mouth, making sure that folks know even just from the baseline of like what's currently in their home. And then once they understand like some of the appliances, for example, that are in their home, what are the health effects of that?
Hmm.
And then from there creating like the strategies of like how can we move forward, how can we decarbonize our homes and just everything around us. And so really connecting closely with that mission and the work that we're doing towards a just energy transition at COPAL. And I think that that clearly aligns, and that work is just going to continue. And as we continue forward, that definitely is the future. And so just again, like what strategies are we using to move towards that goal? I
Yeah.
think that really aligns in that way.
So, I guess a final question would be, what would you tell somebody someone or an organization who's interested in applying for the empowerment grant this year? Like, what would be some helpful advice or tips based on your experience?
Yes, I would say go for it. Like, do it. Applications are open now until August 30th. Got to plug that in. And I think it's just incredible that like, we're talking about these resources for community members in terms of like rebates and things offered through the states, but also like the opportunities for organizations to continue doing this work and to disseminate that knowledge that we have to then community members. And things like this empowerment grant are avenues for us to continue being able to do that work. And so if organizations are have that alignment with Midwest BDC's mission and the goal of decarbonization and zero emissions, and we want to work towards that, I would definitely say apply, go for it, and yeah, and I think also just like the network of folks that are doing this work is so empowering, and definitely also like the inspiration of like what are other people doing in other states since it hits so many different regions,
Mhm.
and we're here in Minnesota, but excited to learn about what folks in other states are also doing, and so I would say yes, just go for it and do it and get that support.
So are you, and with that being said, is your organization looking to apply again this year or no?
Definitely.
Good. I wanted to say, we still have some time here, but I wanted to kind of highlight a few new things that we introduced this year with the empowerment grants. So this year we're doing something a little bit different. We decided internally about doing a cohort. We had a lot of feedback from organizations like yours and others that were saying that they needed that special touch throughout the year because come the midway point, they were still struggling on kind of how to pull everything together. They were great at doing their work and they were caught up in that piece, but how to report that out and what that looks like and feedback and are they doing it the right way. So we took all that feedback and information in and we started what we're going to do this year as a cohort. So we're doing a cohort. Everyone who is when the committee decides who's going to receive a empowerment grant this year, those recipients are going to be moved into our inaugural cohort this year, and it's going to be 6 months worth of on, um, not on the job, but it's going to be on hands-on training and support towards your scalability of your work. access to resources. We're going to do a monthly call, a Zoom call with everybody, all the recipients, for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Everybody's going to talk through where they are with their work currently. What are they looking to get out of this cohort, and also too how they can we can best serve them. So each person is going to be matched up with an internal team member based on their needs, and then from there, throughout those 6 months, the first 6 months, it will be you'll have definitely a direct contact within the organization that can work directly with you, the meetings, and then also too on the last 6 months, since it's a year-long process, will be more or less a little bit hands off, let you do the work, but a little touch and go, and you guys can figure out how you guys want to communicate based on schedules and things like that. So we're really hoping that this first year of the cohort really kind of allows people to understand that we heard what you said, and now we're taking that and applying it and being more of an assistant to helping you continue to do the work of your mission and your goal of your organization. So sort of that technical assistance sort of piece, but a lot more hands-on. So again, this year we're launching the inaugural cohort for the empowerment grants. We're going to try it out as a pilot for the empowerment grants, and if we like how the feedback is and how it works, and work out the little kinks and nuances, we may turn it over and open it up to the participation stipend folks. But because those are a larger group of folks, we just have to make sure that we can adequately manage those folks carefully.
That sounds awesome, and I think that then also feeds into what I was just saying of like the monthly calls, learning from one another and the work that everyone is doing, and just
Yeah.
being able to get inspiration
Yeah.
and hear about the amazing work that's happening all over the Midwest, but also the guidance from Midwest BDC of like what can we continue doing to make sure that everything is aligned and making sure that we're on track. So that's really awesome. Very excited to hear more about that as well.
And appreciate that, and also too, um, so this year also as well, the as the staff member supporting this effort, I'll be sitting in on reviewing applications and looking at folks' proposals and things like that. I won't be making any decisions. That we will leave that up to the committee, but I definitely will be looking forward to reading applications. So looking forward to seeing Melody, your group's application come through, and others who are looking to apply. I've already got some people using my office hours, set up meetings with me, 30-minute calls, and we talking about the application and some of the questions, which are understandable. Hey, if I applied for it before, can I apply for it? It's open to anybody who wants to apply, who has the mission to they're working towards environmental justice and equity and decarbonization. So as long as you're within those three areas, or somewhere around there, then definitely I would say go ahead to apply. So thank you again, Melody, for your time. As a reminder, folks, you can learn more about our regranting program, our past recipients, and apply for this year on our website, www.midwestdecarb.org. I'll spell that out, MIDWESTDECARB.org. Again, applications are due August 30th. Thanks again for joining us. And Melody, do you have any final words or anything you want to say?
Yeah, no, just thank you for having me, and don't forget to apply. Deadline August 30th.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. Thank you again, and looking forward to seeing you on the next stream series from our past empowerment grant recipients. So, till next time, thank you guys.
We'll see you.